Morning, comms clubbers. Happy Tuesday. I don't know if it's half term in your world. It is in mine, and all is peaceful. There's no school run this morning, which is delightful because it just brings a calmness to the morning. And that calmness gave me time to reflect on a series of conversations that I've had with people recently, where they have said to me that when they are chatting to people they know well in their family or close friends, they're starting to feel on a number of occasions, for a number of reasons, that they are not necessarily being heard. Morning, Rachel. They are not being heard or not being listened to, or that the person they're speaking to just doesn't get them. Morning, Gwen. And that they just feel a lack of connection. And it got me to reflecting on the conversation that I'd had with these different people over the last week or so. There were a number of common traits, and this morning I want to spend a few minutes talking about one of the most common traps that people fall into and situations they find themselves in. And this is tricky because once you fall into this trap, it's really hard to clamber out of it. And it's all about waiting for someone to finish speaking before you speak. Now, it might sound like the most obvious thing in the world, and you're probably listening to me saying, well, yeah, of course you wait for someone to speak and then you speak. But do we? Because 9 times out of 10, we are time pressed, or we have made sweeping assumptions and judgments about what the person is about to finish their sentence with. And we want to either correct them, share our view, or agree with them so much so that we interrupt them. And we start our reply before they've actually finished their sentence. Now, a lot of the time, it's just with sheer enthusiasm, saying, I know exactly how that feels, because this is when it happened to me. And we interrupt and overlap the end of someone's sentence. Now, if you're just having general banter and it's just a really enjoyable conversation, fine, crack on. But what I want to do is give you confidence that when your conversations really matter, when they're ever so important to you, and that you really don't want to sacrifice the connection between you and the person you're speaking to, then this is one of the tips that I would give you that changes an awful lot about how your communication feels. Because when you interrupt somebody and start talking before they have finished speaking, it sends a number of subtle messages to that person. One of the messages is, I think I know where you're going with this. Let me talk to you about me. Another one of those messages is, yes, this is boring, let's move on. And another one of those messages could be, do you know what? We've been here before. I'm just not bothered. I'm not interested in hearing to the end of your sentence. Now, Gwen, I see that you said you're guilty of jumping in with her own experience. I get it. And 9 times out of 10, our intention is pure. Our intention of sharing our own experience and overlapping the end of their sentence is simply because we want to say to them, I know it's okay to feel like that. I felt like that too. Or I know exactly how that feels because here's my story of it. We come from such a good place, but our action in jumping in actually has the complete reverse impact in that conversation, which is why I want to raise it and bring it to your attention today. Now, sometimes also we speak to the person that interrupts us, which, if you've got a friend like that, then post below, let me know. Somebody that the minute you start saying something that you think is important, because we share important information, before you can even tell the end of the story, they've jumped in. When it happens to you, it can kind of feel really frustrating, can't it? And it also feels like I know when it happens to me, in the end I think, oh, do you know what? You're not interested or you're not bothered. I'm going to stop, trying to get the message across. And what happens is the connection between me and that other person diminishes. So it's not nice when it happens to you, and it's not nice when you do it to the next person, but there is a little habit that you can challenge and retrain yourself to wait for the full stop to land. Because I have a number of friends who they can use 8,000 words to tell you a piece of information when probably 80 would do. I've got friends that will give you a paragraph instead of a sentence. But you know what? Sometimes even if they go around the houses and they say the same thing in 5 or 6 different ways or repeat themselves, the challenge is for you to still give that person the respect to wait for the full stop, the final full stop to land. It's such a powerful thing to do. And I'll tell you why. There's a few reasons, maybe 4 or 5 things that I think this approach really brings as benefits to the way that you communicate. Number 1, it reminds you that you are listening to understand and not to reply. If you adopted that approach alone in your communication, you'd find that your conversations are so much more satisfying for you as well as the other person. If we listen to understand and not because we're just waiting for them to stop so we can get our answer in, you will learn so much about the person that you're speaking to. And when you make it your purpose just to listen, to understand them, you will learn an awful lot. You might be surprised about what would come at the end of those sentences if you let them run. You might find that those sentences end in exactly the way you predicted. But there's another little piece of magic that happens when you let the full stop land before you speak in a conversation. And that is that sometimes those people, they never really hear themselves talk whatever it is they want to talk about. They never hear themselves talk it right out. Because somebody, you, maybe someone else, will jump in before they do. And sometimes people are looking for a solution. Sometimes people are trying to understand why they feel a certain way about a situation. And they are actually starting the conversation with you because they think you might be able to help them. 90% of the time, they could help themselves if they just listened to what it was that they were saying. And if you just sit back, keep eye contact, have positive body language, and just allow them the time. What's it going to take? 60 seconds of your life? Let them reel everything off. Don't try and interject. Don't try and keep up with the number of points that they are raising. Just let them speak. Because when they get to the end, sometimes they will have heard themselves for the first time. Or even, if you get really good at this, you'll find that some people, they talk themselves through a problem, through the options, and actually they identify the solution that they want to choose all on their own. You didn't even have to do a thing other than be an empathetic listener in that moment. So when you wait for the full stop to land before you speak, it allows you to portray a really important skill of listening to understand, not to reply. It allows people to genuinely hear themselves for the first time on a lot of occasions. The second thing that it does is it slows your conversation down. Now you might think, well, it can't do because the other person's rambling on. It does, trust me. When you use this, it brings a calmness to the conversation because you're actually not competing to speak. Because when you start to overlap each other's answers and speak before the other person has finished, it becomes like a competition. How quickly can you get your point of view in? And can you rush through your comment so that your friend doesn't interrupt you? And then it becomes a very fast-paced conversation. And be aware of it. See for yourself the next time it happens. When you just let the full stop drop before you speak, it slows everything down. And that calmness, it allows you to listen, to process what you've heard, to reflect on it so that you can understand it. And it gives you time to create what you think would be a good response when you get your opportunity to respond. And it will really bring you into the present. When you're not trying to tell your story, you're not thinking about what you could say at the end of it, you will find it's like a deep satisfaction, and ultimately it's a deep connection. And that's why we converse in the first place, is to feel like we are connecting, that we are heard, that we are understood, and that we belong with the person that we're speaking to, and that the connection and the rapport is strong. So when you do that and you just wait for the full stop, not only does it calm the situation, slow the conversation down, not only does it allow you to listen to understand, but it also allows the person to be heard. That one approach completely changes the dynamic of your relationships once you perfect it. So it sounds so simple. And also, looking at it on the reverse, say you are the person that shares and the person you're talking to is the one that interrupts you. The best piece of guidance that I could offer you to make them stop doing that is literally speak. The minute they interrupt you, stop speaking. Because what we normally do, and you might not even notice it, but there's such a subtlety in the way that we connect and communicate. When we speak and someone interrupts us, 9 times out of 10, we finish our conversation anyway. Our friend has started their reply. And so for a small point in that conversation, we've got 2 voices. But we feel like we don't want to be denied the end of our sentence. So we carry on. But they've already started. So the voices overlap. If you want someone to learn to stop interrupting you, the minute they do that, stop speaking. And, genuinely listen to understand the piece of advice or their story or their response, but don't speak again until their full stop drops. Then when you reply with whatever you want to say, if they interrupt you again, stop. The minute their voice speaks, stop. Sit back, give them the respect that they deserve because it's their turn to speak, apparently. Hear it through, reflect, process it, and speak again. And I can't tell you how powerful it is in sending the message, because the other person will notice. They will notice that they've interrupted your flow. They will notice that they've spoken over you, and they will do one of 2 things. They'll either recognize it and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, or they will just stop it. It will change their approach. So don't compete, just relax, let them speak. You speak again. The minute they interrupt you, stop. Don't compete with their voice. One voice only. You wait for their full stop to drop. And I can't tell you how quickly someone will change their approach. It's powerful, but it's always done with the purest of intention. So that's my little top tip for Tuesday. Oh, I didn't think that through before I came on live. Top tip Tuesday. Learn to enjoy conversations by waiting for the full stop to drop and just see what happens. I'd love to know what you think of that approach. If you are an interrupter or if you are regularly interrupted, and whether you are on board with trying this out to enhance your communication. Because for conversations that matter, for people that matter, this is so important as a technique. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I can't wait to see what you think about it, and I will see you back in the Comms Club very soon. Okay, bye for now.